let's check it out if the sound is working. Of course, I have a little delay as always. So the first, I guess, 5 minutes will be basically nothing. So don't expect anything. Just skip to, I don't know, minute 5 or something, 6, 7, because then we can actually start. I'm just checking out if all the specs are working. I'm seeing the live stream is on and somebody above is drilling because this is the perfect timing for you. Yeah. So let's see. Okay, are you hearing me? That would be nice to know, because then I can actually... Oh, come on. Sorry for that. I cannot control that my neighbors want to drill at 7 PM, because that's the perfect timing for that. Sweet. Okay, it does work. Oh, Jesus. All right. I guess I have to go through that anyway. Oh. Sweet, sweet, sweet. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is basically, I can say it, never mind. It's just a Pokemon something monster battler where you just run around this dude here and seriously annoying guy, and then you just go on one of those guys and then you battle. And for that you just basically need 2 rooms, the overworld and the... Seriously, now he has to do that. Okay, never mind. I tried anyway. So this is just basically the game, and what you can expect. You need to have some things, or need to know some things in advance. So what you need to do is just think about it. So for such a game, what do you need? First of all, well, you need 2 rooms, one where the battle is starting, so your monsters, and then the other monster. So this is one battle room, and then you have just basically a dialogue box where some stuff is happening. And then you need another room where you just run around with your dude or dudette, and then just meet other dudettes, and then, well, you fight them. So basically, for the overworld, what do you need? You need NPCs, which you can, well, encounter, and then you fight them. And of course you need your player, so player 1. And then this is just basically it. Here you just roam around, and here the battler, you need a few more things. First of all, you need to grab from the NPC which you're encountering. Then, well, you are doing and passing in some informations, because you want to take the information of your monster into the battle room and the information of the NPC which you are encountering. So basically we can actually start it like this, already prepared it in advance, and of course we will rebuild it, so you see step by step. So basically you are this dude here, you can run around, you animate. There's not much going on, so if you maybe watch my other tutorials, no big difference here. So basically you can just run around. Seriously, you have to do that now. And then, well, you have an action key which you press, and then you're getting instantly here. So basically you have an intro phase which you're seeing here. Seriously, you read it. And then, well, you have some options. You press a button, and then, well, you get different phases. Then you get an animation where this enemy is shaking. You need to skip that, because you have a manual input. Then you have some animation, pop-up of a damage number, and then, well, it's a loop. And basically what you need to grab from the NPC and from your player is the name of your monster, the level, and this is just basically the health bar of it, because I guess this is the thing which the Pokemon game has. Picasso? Nah. And then of course the HP bar here, and then the HP stats here, and this is just the game, nothing too fancy. So for very new GameMaker Studio guys, what we can actually do, and let's actually kill the camera system. So the first thing which you need to understand is, for example, if you're having an overworld and you build it like this, you need a camera system so you follow it. And so the first thing you would just go, and this is I'm not using my camera because I guess it's a little bit complicated. Of course it's superior to this system because it's following, smoothing and so on, but you just go under cameras, you enable it, then you want to have the viewport 0. This is just basically saying, hey, which camera you want, because the GameMaker Studio is allowing you for, come on, to have 7 cameras, as you can see, 0 to 7, so basically 8. You just take it visible, and now you see, well, a big rectangle is showing where the camera should be. Of course, this one is way too big. Then, of course, you go for a smaller one, which I would say 270. This is a random value because I prefer it to be that big, so 480 by 280. Of course, if you would, for example, do something like this and make the camera setting here with the width and the height the same as the viewport, that means the way it will be scaled up or scaled down is 1:1, then it's quite small. Therefore I just make it, what was it, 4 times, so 4 times, yeah, 4 times, no, it's 1, here we go, and 1080. And what you will see, for example, once you start it, then it will be scaled up. And this is the thing which you do with cameras. You basically take a port out. As you can see, the Windows is quite huge and it is zooming out. Of course, if you go out with your guy and he's gone, he can go actually out the room. This is, of course, a thing which you don't want, and therefore you have this neat thing which is object following, and then you just select the one which you're having, and we go for the player. Once again, we started. Thanks for the work. Yeah, you're welcome. Hopefully you can actually learn something, because I guess if you have watched most of my videos, there won't be too many difficult things, or nothing which is too difficult. As you can see, I can actually walk out of the room because, well, that stuff is not defined. As you can see here, I didn't do anything. So the first thing, maybe if you start with GameMaker Studio, you think like, hey, I want to do the cosmetic stuff, and that would be pretty easy. So you go into your sprites. This is a thing which will change in the future, so just be aware that this system, which is the resource tree, will be revamped, and this is actually a cool thing for a month or two when the new release comes out. So basically you can just have your own folder structure, and for example you just don't have sprites in one kind of well, drop down folder thing. You just create your own. Then you can make like bundles, for example one folder where you just have player stuff, where you have the sprite of the player, the sound and so on, what you need in the scripts. And here, as you can see, everything is still strictly well separated. And what I did here, and this is of course once again pretty easy, so for example I just put in a tile set. So this is a 16 by 16 tile set, and how you can set it up, this is quite easy. I just got it, so I will put the project once it is finished. Of course it is already finished, into my Patreon, so you can actually get it for free, no problem. You can just download it and mess around. Of course this is a GameMaker Studio 2, so if you don't own it, well, you cannot use it. And then what I did here, I just put in 2 tile sets together in Photoshop, so this is not a biggie. And then what you basically do, you just go and say and create here a new tile set. You just go create one, and then you divide it in your squares, because this is how tile sets work. I just have it on 16 by 16 because I guess the tile set is made for 16 by 16. I guess maybe smaller. 16 by 16 works for me. So here, all the other numbers you can basically ignore. And then if you see those two numbers, output border, this just means, for example, if you would, well, having some issues with, for example, zooming in the game, then how much of a pixel you want to go overboard, and then it will be shown. And this is a thing you don't need to really know. And how can you actually use it? For example, you create your own room, so you go right mouse button, room. This is the overworld, and then I just go for tiles. So here you can create a new one. Already did this, and then you just go. You have those two tabs. Then you can actually paint if you like, but I don't want to destroy it. Let's give it some more chests. And this is how you paint it, and this is the thing. And well, for beginners, once again, after you made your cosmetics, after this thing looks actually pretty neat for you, then you put in your instances, and instances are the things which are reacting, doing something. I guess for guys who watch regular stuff, this is pretty boring stuff. Sorry, but let's make this as easy as possible. So this is the whole setup. Now you need to think, okay, so what do I need? Once again, you need your player. This is this dude here, created as an object player, and then an NPC. And because you want it to be modular, that means you having one kind of blueprint. Therefore you create an NPC parent here. And after that, all the stuff which is in here. So what does it contain? It doesn't contain too much, just some informations. And now we come to the meat of the thing. You need to have some informations, stats, which you pass into the room. Because what do we need? First of all, how your monster is being called. And for now, we just use one monster. So basically, every encounter is kind of very static. Of course, you can have different kind of modulations. This is just for you, so you get the basics of that. Of course, if you want to have it with 3 or 4, then you would have to have that, and then you call it monster 1, image 1, and so on. But here, nah. So what do we need? First of all, how the thing is called. For now, it's just default nothing, because this is, again, this is just the default thingy here. Then you give it an image which you pass in, because once you start it, you want to have it its name. You want to give it an image, and I just have 3, so the plan thing, pretty cool stuff. This guy here and this guy here. So all those 3 will be just used. Of course, if you're having a game like this, of course you will be having hundreds or a dozen or more, who knows, but quite a few. And then of course, what you need to have is, what do you gain by destroying it? And I guess in this Pokemon Game Boy variant, which I just checked out, I never played the games. My brothers actually did, and they like, oh, this is the coolest stuff ever, blah blah blah. But for me, I never got into it. Not sure. I didn't play Digimon, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh, and how all these games from these times were called. Of course, Pokemon is still fresh as far as I know. So in my office they played this, what was the Pokemon Go, I guess, where you go through everywhere and just collect that stuff. It was never interesting to me, but I see the allure that people actually want to do this, so why not? It's still a popular genre. So once again, we got the name, the image, and then what you gain. And this is just basically XP from it after you kill it, or I guess in the games you just make it unconscious, something like this. I'm not sure. Audio isn't on my end. Okay. Okay, I'll just keep on going. For example, if the audio is not loud enough, just say so, and then I will ramp up my volume a little bit. But I guess it's okay. What's the next thing? First of all, those monsters have a level system. I guess this is how you cap them. Of course, this is just a cookie cutter stuff, so there's not too much going on here. They are still static. If you do your game, then you need to have a level system. Then you're just thinking, okay, how much more XP, how much more damage has the level 2 to 3 and so on. This is just for you, so you understand. Because I guess in most games, those guys are pretty static. So for example, he is always having a level 13 Brezelmon, and for example, if we're having another one here, then this dude, for example, would be having a level 7 Plantmon, whatever, or what was it? One was actually called Relaxo, which is actually a cool name, by the way. Then they always have the same static monsters. So they can have, let's say, HP, which is, I guess, their thing, because this is a quite simple system. And of course, then they have an HP max, which is at the start the same. Then maybe there are some types, I don't know, monster, which is fire, plant. Then you have some more variations, because if you just have HP and damage, that would be kind of boring. So let's keep that in mind. And of course, the other monster maybe has some damage variants. For example, here this is a normal claw attack or just a regular melee attack, and then some of them maybe have some specials, which is this second one. So here, if you're, for example, having this parent will inherit all those things which is he having, and he's having not much, to his children. For example, here, as you can see, you can add his children, and then they will get that stuff, and of course that stuff is being overwritten. This is how you do it. You just have the same values, but you fill it out with the stuff which is concrete, because this one is just for default, this one is actually there, and therefore you just do event inherited. This is quite a concept you need to understand, because having parents just means, hey, you're passing stuff into it. But for example, if you create your, let's actually do this. So let's kill this delete event, for example. As you can see, now it is gray because it is inheriting from the object parent, which is sitting here. So if you don't know parents, bam, here. But if you want to have your own stuff, you just go create, and now you're overwriting the stuff which is being passed in. But what you can do is just say, hey, event inherited, and then you're getting the stuff passed in anyway, but then you override it. So basically you have already those variables set. And this is the thing behind the create event. So if you don't know what the create event is, this is what gamemaker and all video game IDEs do. First of all, they need to allocate some space with some variables. So here you just say, hey, I want to have some memory, want it to be allocated, and then you call it, you give it a name, and then you give it a value. This is called initializing. This is kind of important, because later on you want to use those variables to do something in the other events, so these other ones. But for that you need to tell GameMaker Studio, hey, get some memory space, some in your RAM or wherever. And then what it is doing is just basically saying, hey, great, I allocated some memory space, and it's called other monster name in this object here. This is how it works, and then you can use those variables for whatever you want to do. This is the idea. Okay, I guess for advanced ones, or you see my video tutorials and you're like, boring, I already know that stuff. I know, this is just for beginners, so you understand how the whole concept works. So basically what I did just here, once again to recap, I go into my dude here, which is sitting here, giving him some values with specific names, and those things will be passed then into our battler room. And here, this is the battler room. It's not too difficult, and here I did it actually kind of easy, because you have a layer which is called assets. So basically I just put in, for example, the text box. You can just drag and drop in here, and then bam, it's just there as a layer. So they are not dynamically, there's nothing here. This is just a thing as well, just some sprites. I just drag in here and bam, and give it a background which is a little bit grayish. Can I actually check it out? Yes. So basically here, give it a color, and then you're pretty much set. And so basically we already have everything set up what we need. Okay, so the audio is good. I already had some worries. Sweet, so let's kill the camera. Nah, we don't need this. This is my own. So what you see, the other guys don't really need much more. Of course, maybe you have some dialogues and all that stuff, but here this is just strictly for the battler. So we are already finished with the NPC because he just needs to contain informations on the upcoming fight, and this is just basically it. Now we come to the player, and this dude is a little bit bigger, not too big. You assign it a sprite if you like. Of course you don't have to, but I guess it's a good standard. Then you place him as instance. Come on into the room. So basically bam, so you actually have one. And what do we need? And here there are quite a few things put in, not too difficult per se. So what do we need? Because once again, our dude needs to walk around, and therefore he needs, once again, in his create event, a few things in advance set up. Shadow, nah, we don't need a shadow here. So the first thing is you need some inputs. And there, for example, you can go left, right, up and down. And then you just give it a 0 value. These values are things which are being used later on to define where you're going. And of course, an action, I don't actually have that, action 0. So this is just basically your action key. You press it, this is for me H, and then, well, something is happening. And what is happening? Region, am I here? Yeah. So I'm having a script, and scripts are pretty easy to understand because this is just code which is not being somewhere in one of your step events. This is just lying in, or this is just stored in here. There's no difference here. For example, I could write down the code here, but scripts make it a little bit easier. And for example, if you want to reuse it, and this is the idea behind scripts, so you don't have to type in the same code every time. And therefore I just, and for example, if you press F1, then you actually open another tab. And what's happening here, I'm just checking for keyboard inputs. And there are a few ones. This is not too difficult to understand. So basically I am checking for your keyboard, and then it's saying ORD, or for example VK, I don't know, what was it, down, up, left, yeah. So you have different kind of ways how you can check for your keyboard inputs. And this is how you can do this. So this is basically a script which is from GameMaker Studio, and it is just checking out like, hey, are you pressing, for example, this specific key? So a script is basically just running in the background. This is from GameMaker Studio, so this is an advanced setup, because then you don't have to write it yourself, because I guess that could be kind of complicated to do. And then you assign it to a value. So this thing will always return one value, or one value in after you press. For example, what it can be is 0, so you have no input, or 1 because you actually press this key. And for example, the difference between those guys here, so VK left, so this is from your keyboard on the, where is that located, on the bottom right. It's a predefined key, or for example ORD, this just means like one of those other keys. And why is that not the same as here? Because these are standard keys. On every keyboard you have the VK left, the enter, and so on. This just means virtual keyboard. And these things are universal. Every keyboard has them. But here, for example, if I'm having, let's say, a Latin keyboard, which is, I don't know, from Europe, then you have from time to time different kind of letters. For example, I use ABCD, so this is the Latin alphabet. But let's say, for example, you go to, I don't know, Czech Republic, Poland, and so on. Then you have things like W and Z and all that stuff. And these things actually don't exist in, let's say, the German or the English keyboard and so on. And therefore you have ORD, and there you can define those things. Therefore, that's why you have the standard ones, which are always valid, and the ones which are specifically tinkered to your keyboard, which is one of your country's languages. So therefore, once again, this is just checking out, and this stuff is because it is in our step event. So the step event just means if normally 60 times per second we're just running this script, and then it's checking, hey, are you pressing left, are you pressing right, are you pressing this, and then like you're doing that quite often, and therefore there are different kind of checks you can do. This one is just checking all the time, so if you're constantly pressing it, or for example if you like to do check press, that means after you release the key. This one is great for example if you're pressing it constantly, so you're moving to the right. And this one is great, for example, if you just want to press it once and then release it. And this is, for example, how you enter, because, well, these have different kind of functions. This is basically for movements, for constant checking, and this is just for one time. And this is, of course, great then for a check of, well, a menu or a hit of, for example, your key you want to, I don't know, attack or whatever in other games. So this is how that works. So once again, our player, which is walking around, is getting the first thing, which is the input. Kind of important because you need to have a link between, well, your keyboard and your game. So he's getting his input, but basically nothing is happening for now. What you can do, and this is the interesting part, you just give it now a direction, for example, and what GameMaker Studio does, and as you can see, this stuff is green. This is the important part. So let's actually kill that and put that into the notepad. What you can do, this we comment out, so if it's green, that means it's just not being played. For example, once you have this, nothing would be happening. So what you can do in GameMaker Studios, you want to update the position of the player or whatever to something. And as you can see, you have at the bottom left corner, you have some numbers here. So it says like 19,310. So basically this is the coordinate of a pixel on your game. So for example, if I'm just being on the rock and just checking out, this means 6122. This means this is has the X position of 61 and the Y position of 21. So this is the same then what we do for the player, and we want him to, let's say, move around. If you see that this is some kind of choppy movement because, well, we are on the grid, of course you can disable it, so don't snap, and then I could actually move him quite fluidly, but sometimes you want to have the grid because I guess it's easier. So as you can see now, it snaps back again. So we want to update the position. So how do we do this? We just say, hey, your X position needs to be something. And therefore, what you could do is just say, hey, update it, and then you say plus equals. So you actually understand the syntax. So for example, if you have just one equal, for example, let's say equal 1, this just means you're setting your X position to 1, and then it will always be 1, which you don't want, or for example 100 or whatever. For example, if you have a double equal, this just means you're comparing something. This is, so you understand the difference between, let's say, setting something, this is setting, and with two equal signs, it's comparing. So this will be used later on, so you understand. But if we want to have it dynamically, we go for plus equals. What does plus equals actually mean? Plus equals is a short version for, let's say, for example, let's go for left. This is actually what we could do. Let's go for right, it doesn't really matter. Plus equals just means this is X plus right. And this would mean that my X position is the old X position plus my input, that would be always 1. So for example, once we run it, so you understand how the movement actually works. So for example, I'm pressing right. As you can see, he's being moved right, and because this is a constant check, it goes fluidly out of the screen. Of course, I cannot go out, which is definitely a nice thing. So for example, if you like this, then for example, you could say, hey, minus left. So for example, if you would do something like this, then the first number, which could be 1 and the other one 1, you could cancel them out. For example, if I'm pressing right, it does work. If I'm pressing left, it doesn't work. Why not? Because we need to go to the left as well. So how can we actually do this? And here we define some extra variables, which I defined at the start. It just setting, hey, speed. And this speed is just being used, for example, for your input, which this can be 1 and this can be 1 as well. And then we say, hey, we want to update our position now. And then we just say, hey, x plus and times a move speed, because maybe you want to have a specific move speed. Of course, you can go for 2 or 3, and this stuff then updates it. So once again, let's check it out. And now we already can we go up, go down, and this actually works. And I'm just checking out why my input is not working, because I actually changed it. So let's go into, what is it? Left is A. Bam. I was just worried because it could not go to the left, but now it is fixed. So once again, you could of course just do something like this, but if you go with a move speed, then you can actually adapt it a little bit more. This is a more elegant way to do this, because then you can adapt it. But as you can see, it works perfectly and it is kind of fast. And times the move speed is just saying you like, hey, I want to have a very specific movement speed. So now what we established is we have our little game. We put our NPC, which is static. He's basically not doing anything. And we're putting our player in here, and bam, he can already move around, which is pretty sweet. But of course, we want to have a little bit more than that. What do we want? We want him to animate, because, well, why not? And therefore I did another script. So for example, here you go under scripts, right mouse button, and then you create one, and then animations. And this is hopefully not too difficult to understand. This is, once again, we're just checking for our inputs. So for example, we are pressing left, then we set our sprite index to something. And if you're thinking, okay, what the hell is a sprite index? The sprite index is basically your image which you're using for your object. Of course, it doesn't tell here, yay. So basically, if you are having an object, then it has one big image which it is having. For example, we're just using this one for the girl, or this one for the player. So here you can actually check it out. So these are how the sprites are there. Then you can animate that thing. And what I did here, I just gave it a specific sprite index. And then you're having those variables. You're thinking, what the hell is that stuff? Well, because maybe you want to change later on the clothes of, let's say, maybe he's getting an armor or whatever, and then he actually looks kind of different. If you like, of course, this is optional, and therefore I just have once again some variables in our create event which have specific sprites, one for the side, one for going. I don't actually have one. Oh, sweet. So one for the side, one for going down, and one up. And if you're thinking, why side? Why not one for the left and one to the right? Well, we don't actually need it. So for example, I just show you this. Let's go and create an asset. This is just so you understand why that is not important. So let's say, for example, you're putting this thing in here, but If you're going to the left, then it would be working. So for example, a monster, of course, this is wrong here. But then you can do something like this. And then you have the same image, but flipped on the other side. And therefore, you just need an image from the side, and then you can just flip it. Downwards, it doesn't work because, well, this is not what you want. And therefore, it does not work. You just need to have the illusion of going sideways, going down and up. And therefore, for those really, really small games, you just need an image of a sprite which is going downwards, one which is going to the side, and then later we can flip it, and then one which is going up. So what I do, for example, if we are pressing left or right, we just use our sprite index, which I assigned later earlier on in this variable, so to the side, and then we have this thing which is called image X scale. And this is how you can actually scale images up. So let's put this plant again here. So for example, the image X scale is this thing here, so you can stretch it out if you like. For example, this has a value of 1, this has a value of -1, and then of course you have a Y scale, so you make it really, really small or make it bigger. And this is how you can control those things. And as you can see, those things are green because these values are variables which all the objects contain. Therefore, they are kind of heavy. This is a thing which is about GameMaker Studio great and bad at the same time, because, well, every time you, let's say you create an object here, then all those things are pre-designed and they're already inside and you can use them. But of course, that makes them heavy. For example, if you have a game which is a shooter, for example, let's say you have a bullet hell and you have 1 bazillion bullets, then all of them have an image X scale, a speed, an index, and all that stuff, and they are pretty much preloaded with all that stuff, maybe which you don't need or want to have. And therefore, in upcoming IDEs, so I guess 2.3 or a higher one, there will be something which is a concept which is called a lightweight object, and then, well, then you can pretty much define your own objects, and then there will be smaller ones. So interesting concept, because, well, here they are pretty much bloated with stuff. So once again, we are pressing our left, and if you're saying, well, so what does that mean? So here you have now a comparison. You're not assigning something, you're comparing something. If you just say left, okay, what the hell does that mean? This is just short for left is 1. This is just checking, for example, if you are, this is very, very short scripting. So for example, if you don't know what that means, this and this is, from concerning the syntax, the same. Here you're comparing because you're saying if, just saying like, hey, are you pressing left, my friend? And then if you're pressing left because it has a value of 1, then we assign something. So here, please don't confuse the 1 equal with 2 equals. And this is a standard. So for example, if you are using Java, well, JavaScript and all the other languages, Python and whatever, the syntax is always the same. You have comparisons and assignments. Just very, very quickly. And then once again, as you can see, we are, let's make it a little bit more beautiful. So we are assigning a few things. So first of all, the sprite index to our variables here, bam, bam, bam. And then the image X scale, as you can see, if you're going to the left, because this dude is, if you're going to the side, he's going right. And therefore we need to flip it, the image X scale to -1. And for example, once we started, let's go in here. The other stuff, for example, if we're going to the controls or the battle thing, we will code it, because here I just want to go quickly over that stuff, because as you can see, that stuff is pretty old and I guess not the most important stuff. Bam, bam, bam. As you can see, image X scale 1 because he's going to the right, and image X scale -1 because he's going to the left. And this is how you can control it. And for example, if as you can see, he is kind of fast and he's animating. But I put in an image speed. An image speed is a thing which is once again controlling the image which you have assigned to your object. For example, here normally image speed 1 is just animating all the time. So this is the value of 1 and it just takes the speed which you put in here. But let's say, for example, the dude is, let's start the game again, is standing around, he's idle, he's actually not doing anything. Then it would be kind of strange like these guys because they are moving around, but here he is not moving around. So what's happening here? Here I give it the regular speed, but let's say, for example, you are not pressing left, you're not pressing right, you're not pressing down. Then I give it an image speed of 0 and then he's like, and he's stuck in the last sprite index which he is having, well, which was assigned. And then, well, all the other stuff, and then, well, we just say, hey, don't animate, and then it actually looks better. So once again, if you have some comparisons, then you can do some flip-flopping. So for example, what you can do besides saying, hey, are you 0, you can say, are you not 0? So let's zoom in a little bit so you actually understand this syntax, the comparison. Or you can say, it is bigger, it is smaller than, and then you can chain it together because you're saying, hey, is this thing 0 and is this thing 0 and, or for example, if you go for OR, there's even XOR, which is, we're not gonna go into that stuff. For example, this is how you could chain things together, and this is a thing which can only be achieved if you're pressing no button. And also if you're having 0 inputs, then all those things are correct, and then you can control it and say, hey, image speed 0, and then, well, you're not moving around. This is how it works. And let's go now into the more interesting part, because I guess you go for the battler, you want to see some more. So the last thing, which is kind of similar to our NPC, besides, well, assigning how he animates. So here once again, those variables for the hero. I just call it SPR. This is just a convention I follow. You don't have to do this, but for example, a lot of guys do this because sometimes you have some variables and they are kind of strange to understand, and therefore it is a good practice if you call your variables specific names so you understand what they actually do, because later on if your game is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you have some variables which are kind of complex and you have like hundreds in one object, which can happen. I have those objects. Then it is a good thing that you actually understand what they do. Therefore, the first stuff I say SPR, which just stands for sprite, or for example SCR script, or OBG is object, and so on. Those naming conventions are kind of helping you out to sort things which are what and doing what. For example, this is getting a value of a sprite. So F1, bam, as you can see. And the other ones I'm doing other stuff. So this is just for you to understand. So once again, we already have this guy here. And if you think depth minus 300, what is this? That is the thing, for example, GameMaker Studio, before it was 2, and GameMaker Studio 1 and GameMaker, what was it, 8? I guess 8. They had just a depth system, so they didn't have those nice, as you can see, bam, they're disappearing, those nice layers here, which you can change around. They didn't have layers, they had a depth system, so it just meant, now let's go in here, make another color, let's go green. They had the depth, and for example, you had a player. Wow, that was slow. You have a player here, and he had a, oh, this is really slow. They had a depth here, and then for example, he had a depth, or let's say of 100. This is just a completely arbitrary number, and then behind him, the background had a higher depth, so let's say 200, and therefore you could see the player on top of the whole background. This is how this system worked, and the GameMaker Studio 2 now has a similar system. I have a video on that if you want to know more. Then as you can see, it is being given a depth, as you can see, left depth 100, and the more on top you are, the number goes smaller, and then you can even go to minus values. I guess the highest minus value is, I guess, something like 15,000. After 16,000, as far as I know, it doesn't really work. They are becoming invisible or something. So here, just keep that in mind. So you can have quite huge numbers. For example, if you want to go in the background, just make the number bigger. And if you want to go into the foreground, well, make the number smaller and minus values. So that's why I give it an artificial depth. And then, for example, if you, go by 300 plus, then what you would see if you start the game, then he would reorganize, and then he will be gone because he's behind the tiles now, which are here, because the tiles are 100. No, the tiles are 200, and I gave him 300, so he's below, which of course we don't want. Of course, normally you don't really have to do this, because let's start it again. The instances have a depth of 100, so this dude is sitting on 100 as well. So not a problem. You don't have to do this, but this is just a common practice. For example, if you want things to over and underlap, then you can correct it with the depth, which is kind of nice. So let's kill that stuff, and now let's go into some more interesting things, more variables. I know there's lots of preparing, because video games do this a lot of time. This is the not the sad thing, but the actual thing which you need to understand. Video games have lots of math, lots of preparing in advance, and that is the thing which, for example, you put into your game design document. So if you don't know what that is, this looks like a mess. Let's fill it up with some neat color. So the first thing which you do if you have a video game, you need to assign and think a few things in advance. And therefore you have a game design document, so the GDD, and there you define in a Word on Excel a few things. For example, hey, what is my game about? So the story, then my gameplay, so GP, then what kind of things do I need to achieve this? So what kind of systems I need to put in, and all the other things which you need to have in advance. For example, if you don't do this, you don't have to do this. This is a good practice, because, well, if you want to go semi-professional or even professional, then that stuff is a standard. You need to have things in advance fleshed out, because if you do what I see in a lot of guys, they just want to go right into, let's say, a combat system or right into some stuff, and then later on they need to patchwork things which have a higher level, and then the coding becomes a mess. Therefore, you need to have a clear structure. First of all, what your overbearing controllers are. So here, controllers are just objects which are sitting on top, and then they are controlling the action, and they are the most important ones. And then they have children, which are go away. They have smaller ones, and then they have smaller ones, and they have smaller ones. So this is how it works. And then you have a hierarchy of very important things, and maybe this is in the end this is just the player, which is getting from the controller, which is then maybe this one's called entity, and this one is called object, player, parent, and then you actually have the player here. So this is this guy. So you understand how the structure works, because this is important to understand. These things are part of what a video game is, and therefore you need to predefine them. Of course, this is a thing which is a complete buzz killer, but it is important nevertheless, because later on you thank yourself by doing so, because you have already a structure. And if you can flesh out your stuff, then you understand, I defined that stuff, I defined the other stuff, and then later on, well, you're thinking like, great, now I actually know what I want, and because you fleshed it out in advance, and then you can actually go into making the game and the parts which are needed. Here, because this game is kind of easy, we don't have that, so only the player, the NPCs, and then, well, how did I call that? The control fight, which is just one thing which I put in here, and then it does work. And of course, if you have a little bit more complex games, here you would be having a controller, then maybe a camera system, then maybe a particle system, and so on, and bam, 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 and all those objects are stacking up because they are being, well, all used, and therefore it's getting more complex, but let's not make it too complex, let's make it easy. So once again, here, some stats, some informations about your monster which you have collected, and for example this stuff you can always change and they will be saved in your player. So this is kind of interesting. So once again, same stuff, you need a name, an image which you assign it to, then a level, experience, and experience next, because your monsters are actually leveling up and therefore you have those two extra variables. Once again, HP, then the type, maybe if there is one, and then the damage, and for example this one may be a special attack, because I guess Pokemons have some special attacks, not sure about this one. I guess the first one was a regular melee attack, a ranged attack, and then the other ones were, I don't know, some poisoning, some sleep special effect. I'm not sure about this stuff, because I didn't delve too deep into it. So once again, we have that stuff. What do I need here? Nah, kill that stuff. We don't actually need it. Destroy event, bye bye. That was just for me. Animation, actually we don't need this. So as you can see, very, very easy object concerning of some, well, animation movement stats and some stats which you're holding of your monster, and then, well, getting the input, getting the animation, actually putting your, updating where you move, and then, well, what are you? Here we go. So this is another concept which I'm gonna go in a few seconds. For now, we will ignore it. This is when you have a collision. Collisions are things which are kind of very, very important in video games. So for example, you're moving around and then maybe let's say this is a wall. Then you don't want the guy just to go through walls and all that stuff, and therefore you have collisions which are just checking, hey, is this box colliding with this box? Because in the end this is just the way it goes, and then bam, can you go through? And there are different kind of collisions. As far as I know, there are 3. So the first one are object to object. So for example, this object, and maybe you put a rectangle object over here, which I don't have, and then you're checking, hey, are we colliding? Then if not, cool, you can go. Then there is the tile set collision, which I have in my exclusive Patreon. So here you have, what do you have? You have the tile sets, and then for example you can have, for example, tile collide here. And then the most important, or not important, most complex one is polygons. Not gonna go into polygons because this is a little bit more difficult, definitely difficult. Not gonna go into that. And then you have some polygonal collisions. And then with polygons you can actually do more because they're quite fast, but complex structure, so nah, not gonna go into that. So the next thing which we actually want to do is set up our object controller file. And as you can see, there are lots of things in here. So create an object, and here we go into control fight 2. And this thing, we just give it a sprite because I like to give it some icons. For example, here, if you're just going through and everything has some names, but if it has a nice icon, then it definitely looks better. So we kill this one, go into instances and put it on top. Of course, you can put it in here, doesn't really matter because we are just doing some stuff. So as you can see, this thing is empty. Now we go into the meat, and here we go into some not too complex structures, but you need to understand what, for example, a controller like this does. So the first thing what it does, it draws a lot of things which are passed in value. So for example, it draws how the name is called, what kind of level it has, the XP bar, or no, this is the health bar of one of those monsters which you're fighting. Then of course the numbers of the actual HP, and then the same stuff for your monster. Then a picture of the enemy monster, of your monster, and then some text which is being written here. This is one of the things which it is controlling. And then it needs to have a loop inside, and the loop is just checking like, hey, what kind of stage are we? For example, are we in the stage of, hey, you can control and then you select attack or special or run, or are we in a stage, for example, where the player is attacking or the enemy is attacking and so on. Therefore, you have a loop which is going through and looping through different kind of stages, then repeating and then looping again, until, for example, it breaks out because, well, one of the monsters is dead. So what is the first thing which we need to have? Actually, we can start with this. So let's go into the controller. So once again, we need to, in our create event, set up a lot of things. First of all, what is that stuff? Here, if you go under fonts, normally it is nothing. Then you can actually create a new one. Then you double click on it, and then you get your fonts, which you can, well, select one of them, and then, well, you can make it bigger or smaller, and then this will be, for example, your default font which you use. And one thing you need to understand is once you set it, then it applies for all those things which you are drawing. So for example, if you're drawing one font, you're swapping to the other ones, then it could look like weird glitching, which is not the best looking, but this is the way I guess the system works. So the first thing you say, draw set font, and then you give it the name which you set up here. Then you have it, and then draw set H align. This is interesting concept. So for example, you can align your text from a specific point to the right, or this specific point to the left, or always center. Center is actually pretty great for some, how can you call it, for some menus. But of course, if you have a regular text, as well, we want to have the text being drawn, and then break, next line, break, next line. This is therefore we just go for FH right, which FH left, because we are starting from a point and we're going to the right, and therefore we set it up here, bam, like this. So this is not too difficult to understand, hopefully. Now we're getting into stats. Are they a lot? Yeah, they are a lot. So we copy that too, because I guess we don't need to, well, I don't need to write it again, because that would be kind of pointless. And then one neat little thing, if you're, for example, a beginner, then you have this thing which you can, well, open and close. This is just called region. So hashtag region and autocomplete, and then and region, and then bam, bam, bam. And then here you can just create your own little folding, which is kind of neat. I really use that a lot, because, well, sometimes you don't want to have all the code being in here. You just want to open and close it when you need it. Therefore, and then if you give it, I don't know, some name. And these are just, for now, informations. So if you open that up, these informations are kind of looking similar. So you're just checking out, okay, your monster name, your monster image, what are all those things? These are, once again, those variables which are looking the same as, for example, from this dude. So other monster name, other monster name. So these are the same variables, but just keep in mind that this variable name and this variable name maybe sound the same, but they are different ones. So this one is belonging to this specific object, and this one is belonging, well, to our controller, and therefore we need to once set them up so they do exist. And then once we have them in existence, we override them, so we can actually use the correct ones which we want. And therefore, please don't be confused, because here I'm just giving him 2000 HP and call him in your monsters, and later on, well, we don't want that. So once again, just to keep that in mind. So once we have those informations, we can actually do something with this. And then I would just skip, not skip, but go quickly into that, into the text. So what can we actually do? So here, lots of things. They look kind of complicated, but they are not. What I'm doing here, so go into the name. Let's copy that into this dude here. And here we go into the draw event. So once you enter the draw event, this is kind of important to understand, you are overwriting its drawing. So for example, let's say you have the player here, and then you gave it a sprite index, or you assigned the sprite in here. Then you are drawing yourself. But for example, if you have a draw event, because maybe you don't want to draw this icon because it's kind of pointless, this is just for you, so you can see you put it in, but you actually don't want to draw it on the room. You just go for the draw event, and then, well, you want to draw some text and other stuff, then you kind of override it. If you want to have it anyway, you just go for draw and then self, and then actually it would show. But for us, we don't actually need it. So let's go galera de bo fala I have no idea what that means. I'm sorry, but I'm using Google Translate, so I have no idea what actually that means. For example, let's say, for example, we want to draw our text, which is our monster name, and let's say our monster name needs to be somewhere. Where was it? Here. So we say, okay, what was it? Once again, we check out the number here. Let's say 340.85. 340.85, and check it out. Then I actually don't see anything. As you can see, it already does work. And of course, object controller find temp store. Okay, yeah, this is correct. But as you can see, it already draws the stuff which we actually want. Of course, you can go with some numbers and just keep that in mind. For example, if your room is all the time the same size, then you can always use those things, those numbers. But let's say you are defining for not a draw but a draw GUI, then you need to have some relative numbers, and then you do lots of tinkering, because now those numbers are changing, because depending what kind of screen resolution you're having, because not everybody has the same monitor. Then you have to tinker around. But the great thing about draw is it will be always the same point, and then it will stick around. So here we can actually use some hard numbers if we like. And yeah, so what is the next thing? For example, we could put in, for now we have the number of, actually we can actually put all of them in here. So copy paste that stuff, because I guess you don't want to see me write all those things. Okay, health name. 1 second. Happening here. Okay, so basically what I'm doing here, I'm just drawing some text, and here I'm having lots of variables, which I guess I have to copy now, which is annoying. Drawing positions. How can I actually do this the easiest way? Let's make it a little bit more clunky. So first of all, we just go in here, and then of course you have to think around where you want to have your positions. So once again, that was 340 by 85. 340, 85. So if you don't know what all those things mean, just basically if you have a text, then you have different variations how you can actually draw text or text. Then as you can see, you have a drop down with lots of different variations. Then you have one with color, extent. Then you have different kind of inputs. So for example, the one which I used here needs to have a position where you actually want to draw it. So you need an X and Y position. So once again, this value here somewhere. And then it needs a string. A string is a thing which consists of characters. So if you know a little bit Java or the other, let's call it higher languages of programming, then you have, let's say, different characters. So for example, this could be a character, this could be a character, and then if you put them together, you form a string, but not like this. You need to put them into those quotations, and now it's yellowish, and this is a string, just a combination of different characters, of letters, or whatever you want to call it. Of course, you can put in numbers if you like, it doesn't really matter, or some space. In the end, this is just one string. And how you can use those strings is you want to draw them. GameMaker Studio is kind of flexible in this kind of regard. So here you can put in a string, but it can be, of course, a number. So this is the thing which a lot of, for example, gaming languages don't allow, a lot of higher languages don't allow. Then you need to convert it to a string. But here GameMaker Studio is kind of flexible, which is a great thing I like about the IDE. And then you can put in a string or a number, it doesn't really matter, it will convert it automatically. But this is the thing which it does in the background. But of course, you cannot, for example, combine something like this and then add a number. This is not how it works. So for example, here, if you would want to string things together, this is how you actually say it. For example, that stuff doesn't work. So this is a little side theory. Therefore, for example, what you could do, this is what I do here. For example, I have a variable. So for example, normally you do variables like this. Then as you can see now they are bluish. But I do var, and var just means you're creating for one step, so 60 times per second, a variable which is getting after the whole event is done. So for example, it's going this line and this line and this line and this line. After the whole event is done, and then it's refreshing, then it will create this thing, and then in the end it will destroy this variable. So it's saving some memory and then deleting it out of memory again. This is what the var just does, and because you just want to have a variable just used once. And what I do, I just chain now strings together to a bigger string. And this is what you do, you just have those quotations and just say level, double point, this is just some writing. And then how you can chain not just num, for example, if you have, let's say, plus this, you can have, this is would be a calculation of two numbers, and then you get a result. But of course you can chain strings, which are those letters together, and then you have a number. And for example, you cannot do something like this because, well, you have a monster level. This would be a number, I don't know, 12, 15, 85, doesn't really matter. This is not how it works, and therefore you need to have this little thing which is called, this is actually a little script, which is converting your number into a string, and then you have one string plus the other string, and then you save it into this little variable, and this little variable I just write later on. So you understand how that works, and this is how you can put, well, text together, because maybe you didn't know. But of course this is just for beginners. For normal people who actually program, easy peasy stuff. So let's check that out. If this actually looks terrible, if I see the if I see the my own stream, that looks fuzzy as hell. Can I put it actually bigger? Oh, I can. Sweet. So what do we actually want to draw? First of all, we want to draw the name. Then let's say, for example, we want to draw our level below it. And here, this just it says draw, text, transform. This is another one. And as you can see, you have always the tooltip below in the window here. This is the cool thing. So for example, if you don't know what to put in, then it just says, hey, position, then the string, the letter, the stuff you want to draw, and the X and Y scale. And this is once again a thing not just reserved for sprites, but of course for strings as well. You can have different kind of strings. Then the angle, which is normally 0. Of course, you can rotate it. This is just for rotation. And then C1, C2, blah, blah, blah. These are colors, and they have specific names. These are predefined, but of course, they you can have different kind of colors put in. I did this in another video tutorial, so you can put in different colors. For example, one would be, I don't know, I guess I will butcher this, something like this one. No, and the number. Not sure what if it was with a hashtag or was it with a $sign. I guess it was with a $sign. So there are different ways how you can actually express color, because in the end they're just numbers and then they just being interpreted later on. Then, well, how much alpha, so how much transparency you want to have. You can go between 0 and 1. 0 is nothing, 1 is full. So once again, what are we doing? We're just drawing our name. We are, Jesus, somebody's hungry. We are drawing our level, and now we draw a health bar, which is kind of interesting. So here, GameMaker Studio actually gives you a pretty neat way how you can make your own health bar. So these are the variations you can have. And it can go from left to the right or from bottom to top and all that stuff. And therefore, you have a few things you want to put in. So actually, let's do that together. So for example, if we draw our health bar, blah, blah, blah. First of all, you need the first position. So let's say we are starting at 340. Do we want this? Nah. Actually, yeah, let's do that at 340 because this is our first X position. As you can see, you have two X's because, well, you have a health bar which starts the left side. Let's call it left side, then goes to the right side. Therefore, you need a rectangle, 4 points. So we go for 340, then a Y position. I don't know, something like this, a little bit lower. Go for 25. I guess this will look very horrible now. 340 to, I don't know, 460. So let's go to 460. Then we need a Y position, and let's make it 3 pixels high. So we just take those numbers here. As you can see, you can have a calculation. It doesn't need to be a full number. Of course, if you want to have a little bit more control, you would be using these kinds of variables, and then, well, this is the beauty of it. For example, let's actually make this one. So for example, let's say you are drawing some text here, some text there, blah 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 blah, and then you have a variable which you call, and then here you would say, hey, this would be 100, and this is 110, and this is 130. And the beauty of it, for example, if you would just change this variable, you can actually move around the whole thing, which is great because it's all anchored on one relative position. Then if you have this variable, bam, 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 bam. So therefore, if you put in hard numbers, then every time you want to adjust something, you need to adjust the hard numbers, which is a bummer a lot of times. So therefore, you have those variables which are set up in advance, and it of course looks a little bit more cryptic than, well, those numbers here. But then if you have these ones, you can actually do more with it. So just keep that in mind. But we do it for now without. Later on, we just copy paste it because yay, let's make it a little bit more beautiful. So once we have, let's say, our positions which we set up here, then we need to have the amount, and this is a value between 0 and 100. And therefore, what do? We actually have our monster HP. Do we have it? Yes. So where are we? Here we go. So those two things, let's copy paste them in here. So first of all, we have our monster HP, which is the current one, we divide it by our maximum value. And for example, here, let's say you have 20, in here you have 20, and then the division is, let's say 1. So the result is 1. And therefore, we want to have a value between 0 and 100. Bam, we go times 100, and then it already works. And then you have some, the back color, okay, go for black, a minimal color, let's go for gray, a maximum color. So for example, if you go back in here, this for example would be a minimum color and this would be a maximum color, but we just go for gray because we want to keep the style. Direction, I guess this one was 0, so you have different kind of directions. I guess 0 is going from left to the right, and then if you put in 1, then from right to the left, blah 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 blah. So let's go for 0. Show back, yeah, why not? Because here 1 and 0, and then show border, yeah, why not? And as you can see, it already does work. Let's grade this one out. So we already have our health, and actually we can start checking out our fight thing, because now we have default. And for example, if you're thinking, okay, why am I doing this? Once you start Game Maker Studio, it will instantly start with the top room, which is this thing. This will change in the 3.5 update. Then you need to define which the starting room is. But here it will just take the top one and then go with it. Therefore, once we start it, as you can see, now we have our monster name being written, the level, and then our health bar, which is a little bit too high. So let's go for 85. Let's go for let's give it 35, 38. Come on, check it out if it does work. What the hell does that mean? Okay, as you can see, already looks almost decent. Sweet. I didn't expect it to be this good. So as you can see, now all the stuff is already being drawn, which is pretty great. So the last thing which we want to have is, let's go for 3, and then 85 plus, and what you're seeing here, once again, I'm just defining what kind of Y value I want to have, and 85 plus 38, let's go for 45, I have no idea. And then we have another string which we want to put in. So what is that? I put in another variable which I call HP, and then we, because this is a number, want to have our HP divided, or not really divided, this is just a character, so that really doesn't do. For example, if you would, let's say 15 by, I don't know, 20, then this is a division. But if you do something like this, because this is just a character, so you just put it in those, this is just being a string, so we're just making a number here, plus this string, plus this number string here, and then we draw it below. So let's check it out, and we already have our first monster. As you can see here, sweet, your monster, level, and then your HP is being drawn, which is already looking kind of nice. So we're pretty fast, so this is great. Of course, this doesn't look too good, and therefore, I don't know, we just go for, let's go for 400, start it again. Let's make some tweakings here. You see, okay, that wasn't good either. 380. As you can see now, you need to tinker around with some numbers, and just to make it a little bit more distinct, because here, as you can see, the image X scale is not 1, it's 0.5, because I guess the first thing, which is the most important one, hey, the name is the biggest one, then the level is an information which you need, but you don't need it as, let's say, big. And then, well, this stuff needs to be not as big as the monster name as well, because these informations are important, but this one is the biggest information. Sweet. So we already have all those things which we needed to draw. And this is a little pain in the, you know what, because, well, we cannot skip this part. This is kind of important to understand. So first of all, what we had here, we have all our stuff being drawn, but let's copy and paste it because I'm kind of lazy, and overwrite that stuff. This is just basically no difference, or region and region. This is just a little bit, so it looks a little bit more, well, better. And of course I'm having those values which are called text your x and other monster, and these values I get from here. So let's copy paste that here. Don't be confused, this is just for region and region draw. These are just those values which I put in because, well, they are kind of convenient, and then later on I can actually change that. So text x, text y, and these things are just put in here, and then later on, for example, if I don't like where they are and I want to quickly do, well, that thing, then I just change this little value, and I don't need to go into all the hard values here. I just go and change it once time here, bam, and it already does work. So let's check it out, because for now I'm drawing now. As you can see, the whole stuff, the Brezelmeister and your monster, and this is how it works. So basically all those things are being drawn. As you're thinking, Jesus, this takes a lot of time. Yeah, it does. So making menus and all those drawings, this is lots of work, and if you want to do your game correctly, you cannot avoid that. So this is part of how it does work. And for example, thinking, wait a minute, so where does this second stuff comes from? It's basically the same: name, level, health, and then name, level, health. Once again, I just did it for the other guy. So don't be confused, this is the same stuff, and you can set it up. For example, if this was too fast for you, no problem. I will go, well, this project will be free, so you can actually use it, but I want to skip ahead because we want to do a little bit more. So for now, we already are pretty good in. So basically we have established where our informations and all this stuff is here. So we are drawing the name, the, what was it? The HP bar, the level, and the, well, the levels by itself. So this is pretty neat. So what do we need next? And as you can think, this is still not our loop. This is just basically drawing very basic stuff. So we have that stuff. So we're already drawing our text. And now let's go into a little bit more fun stuff. So here, bam. What is that? Copy, paste. So now we want to draw actually our monsters, because, well, they are supposed to be here. Shake by. Just deleting some stuff which we will be using later, but I don't want to confuse you. Once again, we defined from our informations our monster image. So this is our monster. And the other one, as you can see, bam, because once we go into draw sprite, we need our sprite, and then the sub image. This is just 0 because it's not animating, so it doesn't really we are not doing anything. And here, because I didn't want to put in hard values, I once again have some variables for the X and the Y position. So don't be confused by this. This is nothing special. And here, besides, for example, your monster and then the draw sprite X for the other one. Why do I do this? Because if you are having this fighting scenario, the monster which is yours is a little bit closer, it's bigger, but the other one is a little bit smaller. For example, once we start it, then you will see, hopefully, come on, don't break. Shit, it does break. Object position image other y. Okay, I didn't copy these values. B. Okay, other y. Here we go. Copy them into our, let's call it drawing. As you can see, these are just hard values which are put in. And as you can see, bam, now this monster is here and this monster, and this is drawn a little bit smaller than this one, so it appears, well, this is yours, your monster, and this is theirs. I find it a little bit confusing because this is what I guess the Pokemon games did, because if you're thinking, okay, this stuff belongs to this monster, nah, actually the left part belongs to this one. This is a little bit confusing in my opinion, because if you're thinking this monster is this one, but it's the other way around. Not sure why the design decision was to do this, but I guess it is. Oh well, no problem. So what we already have, so basically we have our text, which is the vital information, which is all the time there. And then of course you can play around with this, because this is the way it is. For example, the HP of your monster, the other one will be changed, and of course the bar as well. So we already established the text, the vital information which we display, because this is kind of important to understand, and then the other stuff. Now a little bit tedious, but if you want to recap, once again, project will be free on my Patreon, so you can use and abuse it to the max if you like. And then the last thing which I want to put in, what is this? Draw text color state. Yeah, so now we want to have, besides, because now we're having the monsters, the infos, now we want to have a text which is all the time in here, which is displaying what's actually going on, because it's just saying like, hey, a monster appeared, hey, you are attacking, hey, something, something. And therefore we need to draw that. So let's put it in here. And once again, these are hard numbers, you don't have to do this, but here I need to do a little explaining a little bit more, because here, first of all, you need your X position and your Y. So this is kind of, well, normal. Let's go and drawing, yeah, let's just put it onto the draw. So our text, and let's put in lorem ipsum, lorem. And if you don't know lorem ipsum, this is just gibberish for some text. I'll just copy that stuff in here. Bam, quite long. And because we want to draw this action text, so this is a variable which is holding a string, and every time it does change. And now we go into some other stuff which is kind of important to understand about, well, drawing text. You have a separation. What does that actually mean? So first of all, you need to anchor the text where you want to have it. Let's say it's somewhere here. What is it? 30 by 175. So here, 30. Yeah, so it does start somewhere around here. And then we have our text, and then we have a separation. Separation just means if you are breaking a line. And I will show you that in a few seconds. So for example, here, when do we want to break a line? Let's say, for example, you want to draw a text, but it will go over here and to infinity, which you don't want. You want the text to be at some point, then break and go into the next line. So how do you do this? With separation and width. So here I go 300 minus 25. These are just values, because here I'm starting from this position, and then 300 and and then minus 25, something like this. And then at this point it will break. And of course you give it some colors and blah blah blah. So let's start it, and then you will see a pretty long text which is breaking, and this is what you want. Of course it will break at some point somewhere in here, which I want, because here I want to have some other text which is reserved for the action or skipping. As you can see now, the text is here, and then at some point it's breaking, and this is the separation of 25 pixels. This is how this stuff works. Of course, you can go, I don't know, do something like this, but it already is. So now we have all those things established, and this is kind of important to understand, because these things you need to have in advance, and then later on they will change, because now these things are already available and they're giving you as a player information, of course, as a developer as well, because this is how it works. So here we have this. So this is pretty great. Do we want to have this? Nah. Okay. So we have already established a lot of things. Now we go into our action loop, and here it will go into some more interesting stuff, because intro. Actually, let's do the intro, because this is a little animation. So what is happening here? So for now, we are just drawing some static stuff and nothing actually happened. Just 1 second, I'll just drink some stuff. Drink. Okay, back. So now we are entering our action loop, and the first thing which I like to do is let's paint bam. So now we're having our, I don't know, some stuff which we want to enter. So let's say you're having your I don't know, your monsters, and you want them to go in as an intro. This is actually a nice thing. So this would be the first stage. And here, what I do, I have an intro stage. So let's go with another color. So I'm ready. So the first stage would be intro. Then, so intro, when these things are like coming in. And the next stage would be then a choice. So for example, we will be getting some text. So here, text saying like, hey, blah, blah, blah appeared. And then you have like 3 choices: attack, special, or run. And then the next stage would be like, okay, sweet. After we actually got our choice, then the enemy is there. This is a little bit shorter because here they are like in between stages where you have to wait for input, but this is how it is. So an intro, this only comes once and then it's gone. Then a text, which gives your choice. Then some action is happening, and then bam, we go to our enemy, and then well, the enemy is doing some stuff, and then we loop back into our text where you have 3 again choices. And for example, if your monster or the other one has no HP of 0, then this thing is looping. This is the idea behind it. And therefore you have kind of stages. These I call, do I call them stages? I guess I call them state, starts. How do I call you? State, yeah. So the first state is nothing. So here, let's, come on, kill all that stuff. Not kill, but make it not here. And region. And here we go to the action part. This is a little bit more complex. Action. So we have a state. And for now, it's not doing anything, but in our step event, these states will loop. So let's go into our state, and then let's call it intro. And what do we want to do in our intro? We want to move something. So you can actually go step by step. I just copy paste that into my notepad. So we can actually do this together, because now it's getting a little bit complicated. I don't want to. Here we go into some more, not serious stuff, but a little bit more complex. Nah, not really. So what I want you to understand is that first of all, our monsters have some fixed positions at the start. This is great, but you want to have a extra variable which is just moving them from the left to the right, and then it's 0, and then it stops. So this is what I want to put in, and therefore I have a variable which are called, because we just have moved to the left, so, and this is move to the left. This is let's give it a 400, and one we call move to the right, and we give it a -400. And these things we will give instantly to our drawing of our monster. So for example, your monster, because it is on the left side, it is coming, it's going to the right. So here X position plus to the, yep, and here the other one is coming to the left. And for example, once we start it now, then the monsters are gone because, well, their position is out of the screen, left and right, which is great. So once we are in our intro stage, what do? We just move them, which is kind of great. So here, we just update our left because we want to go to the left. And if you go to the left, well, you go minus. And if you go right, then you go plus. So once again, this just means is equals to -5. So this is the same as here. So this is just short syntax, and I think it reads a little bit nicer once you understand it and you're getting used to it. So let's say, for example, this start value to the left is 400. So let's say, hey, have you moved enough, my friend? So if you are smaller to equal 0, what do? Then we zero out those values. So those two guys here, bam, bam, bam. Okay, that was not good. So we zero them out. And then we go into another state, which I call player choose. And these states we still haven't defined because, well, they haven't done anything for now. And therefore we just set up an alarm. So our first alarm, 0. And then, for example, if you don't know what an alarm is just basically a timer. So in Germany, an Eieruhr. So basically you are just saying, hey, at this specific time, which we put in, so let's go for 2 seconds, then this alarm will hit, and it will hit once. So let's say, for example, if you put this in the create event, then after 2 seconds, so 2 times 60, 120, then this alarm will hit because I haven't set it up. Or we do it now. Let's go for alarm. So you find it here, alarm 0. And this is just saying like, hey, start the intro, start intro. So that you can actually destroy. As you can see, it's actually, because if you write something in here, it will, well, draw in here, and then you can actually see, okay, this alarm has this specific function. So what do we want to have? We want our state to be the intro state. So do this, for example, let's start it. So hopefully it does work now. So what's basically happening? 2 seconds, and yeah, they are coming. As you can see, it already works. And as you can see, now they are in their position, and we have our first animation. Yes, sweet, sweet. So this is how it works. So let's check out the, say me hello, El Soda Colas HP. Hello. What is this? I still am so behind. I haven't upgraded to 2, but again, 1.4 is basically all I need for now. Yeah, okay, this is the point. I'm not saying that you have to upgrade to GameMaker Studio 2. I started with the GameMaker Studio 2 and I'm quite satisfied with how the IDE works. And of course, if you're using the older ones, just use the older ones. I don't see any issue with this. I just see this IDE as being pretty nice. It looks slick. So this all stuff, you can pretty much and quickly do some prototyping, actually produce your game with it. So this is pretty cool. Of course, if there is a great competitor, let's say for example, what one was free? What was it? Construct? Some other one? I forgot. If you like to use them, then use them. This is once again all the stuff concerning the syntax, for example, that stuff you can actually do with other IDEs. So you can just flip-flop between those if you like. But of course, if you know how to do GameMaker Studio, then later on you will find it easier. For example, if you do, I don't know, Python and as a regular language or other stuff, because the syntax is same-ish here, so this is not an issue. So once again, what did we do here? Because we did our first animation, yay. Now, come on, end region. So we did our first, well, we jumped from the nothing state into our intro state. We moved these guys with those two variables, bam, and then we lock them once, and then we go into our state, which is called player choose. So here we go. What do we want to do if we are in a player choose? Here we want to actually do something, which is kind of the important stuff. So player choose is the thing which I showed you, where you have three options. So for what do we need for that? And here we go into our draw event, region. Come on. Actually, what we just do is just draw our options. For now, they are not doing anything. So we're saying, okay, are we in our state of choosing? And then let's go and jump quickly in here. Do I want to do it like this? Yeah, let's do it like this. This should be easy. So what do I do here? So we are now in our player choose, and there I just put in some hard numbers. So for example, nothing special about here. I just say, hey, draw, and then draw the string of fight, special, and run. For now, nothing is happening. So basically, guys are coming, and then we have three strings, and this this looks pretty ugly for now. Not an issue. But as you can see, now we are in our state where you can actually choose some stuff. And now you need to differentiate between the stuff which is being drawn and the stuff you can actually do. And this is where we go into step, player action. Make this a little bit bigger. Copy paste. So I can guide you step by step by step, because now it's getting a little convoluted already, because, well, it is. So we are in our step event, and here we actually do our action. We do some input and selection, and therefore what we can actually do, and this is what I like to do, I say script input and fight. There is a slight difference, because I just want to press the key up and down and just the action key, so just three inputs. And now if we are in our state, then this script will run all the time like yeah, and it is just waiting for our input, because now we are in a state of choosing. And then we say, great, let's check our input. So we can already instantly say, hey, are we pressing up? Is this one? And what do we want to do when we are pressing one? We want to check out what kind of position which we are having. So actually, let's run it so you actually understand what I mean by this, because this is what you do in lots of menus and all that stuff. You have selection point. So for example, this would be selection point 1 or selection point find, whatever you want to call it, and then selection point special, selection point run. For example, if you're here and you're pressing up, then you want to be here. And for example, if you're pressing down on find, you go onto the next point. And this is basically just what I'm gonna do. And therefore I just create a switch. So switch is not too difficult, hopefully. Let's make a variable which are called action selected, and this starts with fight. So this is just basically a string at the very beginning. Let's go into our step, and then we're just checking out, okay, so what kind of input did we already do? And here I didn't do keyboard check, just keyboard check release, because I want the input of the player to be pressed once, and then we go into another selection. And then we press again another button, and then we go into another selection. So this is just one step. So one thing to do, and not constantly pressing, because then you would be like flip-flopping between those things. Actually, we can do this for fun in a few seconds if you like, no problem. So we're just checking, hey, action selected. And at the beginning, we just say fight because, well, this is the first thing. And if you don't know what switch means, switch is just basically fight. Switch is just basically a thing which you go through. So this just taking an input, so action selected, and then it's just checking, hey, is this stuff, it's comparing. So this is basically, I could write it like if action selected is fight, then do this, is action selected, blah blah blah. But of course, if you want to make it a little bit more neater looking, because a switch case is kind of better, then you can do this. What was it? Special. Yay. And then you need to break. So what does all that jazz mean? So basically, you're just going through a selection. So switch, just giving an input, just checking, hey, is this thing the same as that? So has it this value? If not, go to the other one. And for example, if it's saying, hey, fight is the first thing, because it is, then because we move up, we actually go for run. Sorry. And then break just means, okay, we get what we wanted, break out of this thing, and then it will continue reading from this point. For example, if you don't do this, it will continue reading all those things and maybe does some stuff which you don't want. Therefore, you always put in a break. And for example, we are in special. Nah, I need to write special. No, yep. Then we go into fight, copy paste. And then, for example, if we are in run, 1 second, so you actually will see that in action. When we are in run and we press up, we want it to be special. Okay, so what do we have here? So once again, you will see the whole animation. The Brezelmeister is coming in. Then yeah, actually you cannot see anything, but now if I'm pressing up, then I would be going through different kind of selections. So let's make it a little bit more interesting. Come on. So this is this part. 1 second. So let's go into our draw event so you actually see what's happening, because for now we are changing our stuff, but you actually don't see it, and therefore we need to do same-ish thing like here. So as you can see, switch our selection, but here we do a little variable which I call selected Y. This is just in 1 second I will show you. Let's give it a 0 value, and that thing is being used to draw a little rectangle. So let's draw this rectangle. So do we have this? Do we have this? Ah, okay. Here we go. And now a little. So let's start it. Now you see this rectangle, which is at 0 here, and now it is here. And now when we change the selected position, that rectangle, not the rectangle, that triangle will go to different positions, and then it will indicate, aha, I'm just, well, having different kind of values. So let's copy paste that in here. So basically I'm just updating its Y position. Let's give it 176 at the very start, so it doesn't linger actually around at the top position. Okay. Let's put it just in our player choose thing. And for example, what you will be seeing now, I can now press up once we are in this stage. As you can see, we already have a visual representation because the selection thing is going through here, and this is how basically it works. This is quite easy because we're just drawing that thing and then updating the position of that thing depending which we are. For example, if you're pressing down on H or whatever, nothing is working because, well, we haven't assigned anything. So once again, first of all, when we are having the player choose, we are drawing 3 text pieces, find special run. Then we want to update a specific position of this little triangle thing, depending what kind of action selected. So this is a variable which swaps all the time because we change it with our input. And how do we change our input? Well, we run our script, which is just checking, hey, are we pressing up? And if we are pressing up, well, we swap it to another position. Of course, you can do that with numbers, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 if you like, but I think giving it a string, it is a little bit more intuitive to understand. Okay, our selected position is this point or this point or this point. So here, this is how it works, and I guess the same stuff you can actually do with down. So let's add that as well. So we're pressing down. Then, for example, if we are fired, this is the top position. If we're pressing down, then we land on special. If we are on special and we're pressing down, we land on run. And if we are run, well, we end up at the top. So for example, once we start again, this little thing here, just checking, hey, where are we? What can we do? Then I'm pressing up. As you can see, I'm fight. Then and this we only change with one variable, and this variable is being used, well, to update it in the step event and to be drawn with this little rectangle thing on the draw event. And this is how it works. So pretty much we have that established, and I'm not sure how long we are in. Almost 2 hours? Are you kidding me? I'm almost 2 hours in? This is way too long. All right. Yeah, so this is this part. I'm already 2 hours in. That went way too fast. Okay, let's make it a little bit faster. So once again, we have that stuff, but maybe you want to put an input because this is the interesting part. We go for action. This is our action as a key. Let's check it out if it's called action. Yes, it is. Okay, sweet. So here, if we are, once again, we're saying, hey, what kind of position are we in? Then we actually do some stuff. And here we come into the interesting point, because now it is time to actually do something. What do I do in here? Okay, user event. So here we need to go into a specific concept, which I have not touched on for now, is user events. And why do I want to have user events? Is basically if you have an alarm after some specific time, something is happening once, or you can, for example, instantly say, hey, user event 0, something is happening, because you want it to happen once and then it's done. And this is the interesting part. So what do I do by alarm 5 and 0? Actually, I have to check it out what I do there. 1 second. The user event is 0. Okay, here we go. Now we come to the interesting part, because we actually want to draw some stuff. So first of all, the action loop. That's, where the hell is the text? Okay, I'm in the wrong object. So this text is way too long. So let's make it 0, 0, 0. Come on. Let's make it something like this. And I put it in tab user intro. 1 second. Intro text. So let's say, for example, we want to introduce what we are fighting at the very beginning, and therefore we just go and go for alarm 1 and put in an action text. So you don't have to do this, but I guess this is a nice way. For example, you could go instantly and put in the text, but I don't like this. Therefore, we just go for 1 and put it after, let's say, not 2 seconds, but as you can see, actually we can do this at alarm 0. Why not? So what do we do here? So let's kill alarm 0. So let's make it not too complicated. So what we would be normally doing, we would be going into our intro stage where the monsters are coming from the left to the right, and then we're just saying, hey, this monster is there. And therefore we change our action text, which is at the beginning now nothing. And then we say, hey, a totally wild, and this is, I guess, in all those Pokemon games. And then the other monster name, which we pass in a few minutes, I guess, and then appeared. So for example, what's happening now? So we're having our intro stage, and when it's happening, we want to have those. And as you can see, a told wild, and then the variable Brezelmon, so this is this thing, appear. And then, yay, we can fight. And this is a thing which we're going to constantly use, because our action text is being adapted to the stage which we're in, or the state now. So we have that established as well. So kill it, because we don't need it for now. So this is great. And now we go into our user event. And what do we do in our user event? Let me check quickly. Yeah, I already did this. Okay, so user events are triggered once. And what do I want to do? Because I need to break it down in 2 parts. The first part, let's go into our drawing board, because why not? Fill that stuff up. So the first thing, for example, if you are having an input, so for example, you're pressing now your input button, you want the text to appear, and then you wait some time, and then boom, something is happening. So you have a hit animation, and then you plus your hit animation plus what was it, a damage number, which is just popping up. So these are the things which I wanted to separate, because if you do instantly text and instantly pop-up animation, then it would appear a little bit too fast to the player, and therefore you need to separate it. First of all, our user event is 0. So here you go on to other, user events, and 0. The first thing is we need to reset our state to nothing. Why do we do this? Because, well, we don't want to have any input from the player, because we want to take it away from him. And after this, normally, for example, if you just go here and just take away, then, well, it's over, nothing is happening. But we want to have the alarm 5 put in. Of course, you can go for another alarm, doesn't really matter. I just wanted it to separate, and this is the player attacks. And let's go into our user event, and here we want to first of all make the state nothing, and then we want to have our action text to the monster name, then attacks, and of course you can have claws, spits, or whatever, and then you can actually modify it to your liking, and this is how you can actually do it. Then attacks, then the other monster name, 4, then string, because, well, it's a number, and damage. So let's check it out. So Brezelmon is coming, you press fight, and then nothing is happening. Turn time. Okay. So this I have defined. This is just I just call it turn time, and let's give it a value of 70. This is just a thing which I put in, for example, depending how fast you want your game to be. For example, some people like it faster, some slower, and this is a thing which you actually have in a lot of games, because here maybe some guys want to wait a little bit more, some less, some want it to be faster, and then you have this variable. Of course, you don't have to do it, you can put in a hard value in here, but I thought, like, hey, then you change it once and then you can update it all the time, or you adapt it to all the time to this alarm. So what's basically happening here is just you want to have it shorter or less short, depending on your style, and then the alarm happens. So for example, fight, we press, and then your monster attacks the Brezelmon for 1 damage, and then after this turn time, so this, as you can see, something would be happening, and for now we have nothing. And now we come to the interesting part, because here we create instances. Instance create. So if you don't know how to create instances, so new objects, here we go. First of all, we want to have our animation to have a hit effect, and for that I just created an object which is called object hit effect. It has a neat little animation. I had it in black and white, but you couldn't actually see it, so I made it yellowish again. And in here we give it a depth of -50. You don't have to do this. For example, you could go and create a new layer on the left side, and then things which are on top, but I just go with a depth of -50, and then I go other, animation end, and then what I do, I just destroy it, because this object needs to go away. So basically I'm creating a hit object which is being spawned, and once this animation is running down, so it is running down, and then animation end hits here, because it's one of its event, and then I kill it. So this is one thing which we do at our controller here. So we do this instances, and now we need to know where, because now we want to attack not our monster but the other one, and therefore somewhere here. So let's go for, what is it, 404.56, 404.56, 56, and as you can see, it will do the whole animation once again. Coming in, Brezelmeister appeared, you press H, and then bam, as you can see, now the animation was after a second or something, and then, well, nothing happens because, well, nothing is going on. So the first thing which we created is a hit effect, then a damage number. So this one we can actually do on the same spot, because why not? What is our damage number here? Kind of easy as well. First of all, we need to initialize actually the damage we want to put in. For now it is nothing, and therefore it will draw nothing, and we give it, of course, a higher depth, so it is above everything, which is important. Then an alarm of 0, and here I just destroy it after some time, so it will go up. And then, well, what I'm just giving it a direction and speed. These are once again values you can give the object if you like, because if you want to move it, you give it a direction. And so once again, direction starts with, this is 0 left, this is upwards 90, and then, well, to the left 180, downwards to 70, and, well, all the other values, let's say, I don't know, here's 45, and then these are the directions you can actually fly to, and then you give it a speed, and then it will go up. Oh, that looks nice. Okay, not that I wanted. And then we just draw a text with the damage which we pass in a few seconds. So here we just draw a damage number with our X and Y position. Because we are going up, the Y position will be updated automatically. So here from this point on. And we didn't actually give it a damage number, and therefore we store this thing, damage number, into a variable. We just do it like this, and then damage, and then what kind of damage number are we giving in? Well, the stuff we passed in at the very beginning. So this is our monster attack damage. Bam. We just give it here. So what's happening? Once again, I create this damage number on the same spot as the hit effect, and, well, store it into a variable which I call damage number, whatever. And then it has a variable which is inside this instance to, well, this is the text which it will be drawn, and then we assign it the monster attack damage which we, well, grab from our controller here. And as you can see, once again, start it, fight, press the button, and as you can see, bam, the number went up, and that was the damage of our, which we stored here. Of course, if we go for, I don't know, 25, let's check it out, it should work. Come on, come on, come on. So here, bam, as you can see, 25, bam. So this is how it works, and of course you can expand on that. This is just for you, so you understand how that stuff works. So pretty sweet. So now we have our stage where we got our intro, got the first selection, then we waited a little bit, then a hit effect is happening, and bam. Now we need to have, of course you don't have to do this, but I like to do this. Now we have a short little break, and we need to do something like this. Okay, so the next thing which I like to do, of course you could automate it, but I think having a player input is not the worst thing. Let's speed it up a little bit. So the player choose is done. Okay, so we don't need this. So the next stage would be skip player text, because for now we have attacked, we have the text, we have the hit effect, but nothing is happening. And therefore what I would like to do, I will make it a little bit faster. I want to have this stage. So basically we have our alarm, and then we go into the next stage or state, which are called skip player text. And what it is basically just doing is just once again taking the input, and if we are pressing again our action button, then we go into another state. If not, it would be waiting for a player input, and of course the action text is getting erased because we don't need it. So let's start it. So we have the whole sequence: intro, coming in, fighting, pressing a button, hit effect, damage number, then here we are waiting for an input, we press it and it's gone, and this is then we go into a small break, and then we can actually do this small break, and for that you can do that again with an alarm, but I just do it with a timer. Come on, timer. These are of course things which you don't have to do, but I like the way that it's actually in. So we go into our, not the information, our action here, and here I just have a little variable which I call small break timer. I will just use it to make small little incremental breaks, and then after this break timer we actually go into the enemy phase. So here, this break timer, we just go minus minus, then we're saying, hey, are you smaller than 0, because it is running automatically down in our small break event, so in our state here actually. Then we reset this value because, well, that's it, and then we go into our next stage. And how did I call that? I called it read enemy text. Okay, so this is how I call that. And here we go. So what's happening here? Basically, we're just having the player skip the text, then we're having a little break, which is, how long is it? 2 seconds, not too long. And then, well, we are skipping here. So we are just waiting, and then we go into the enemy phase, because now the enemy is in there, so it needs to do something. What do I put in here? Okay. All right, 1 second. Okay, quite a few things. Let's copy paste that. But I will go with you over that, because so you understand what's actually happening. Because now the enemy is having well, its turn. It is kind of random, but let's say, for example, choice enemy, and then, for example, you can go choose. This is one of the things. For example, if you want to have some random values, you go for irandom. This would be numbers, but let's say you want to have it a little bit more easy. Normal, go on. I cannot write. Then you would maybe want to do something like this, and you give it some choices, and then maybe here special, because let's do it like this, for example. Then you would say, hey, you give it a random value, you give it some choice, and then it will choose. But for now, let's just go for just normal. Of course, this doesn't make any sense. And then we say, hey, if our choice is actually falling to this one, of course, here you would be branching out more choices because you want to have it a little bit more refined. But here I will just go for the easiest version one. And then what do? We have an action text which we put in, and this is quite long. So our action text would be again the name of the enemy monster, attacks, claws. Let's go for claws. Then your monster 4, and then the damage of the other guy. So let's check it out, because now we are having lots of steps and we are almost finished. We are almost in our loop. Here we go. No. Let's check it out. Not sure what that was actually. So, intro, fight, press, damage number, waiting for player input, pressing, waiting, and then the Brezelmeister clause, your monster for, okay, let's make a little space in here. And as you can see, now this dude is doing something, and for now it's doing nothing, but let's do it like here. Once again, we put in alarm, but let's go for alarm 10. We do a similar thing, so we can actually copy all that stuff here, make the alarm 10, so you can actually differentiate. And now we want it to be not on the enemy, but on our, and ours is, I guess, somewhere in here. So 8493, 8493. Come on. And what do we want to have as a damage number? Not yours, but the other monster. So other attack damage 1. Then it will do this. And because we want to have it a little bit more smooth, just 1 second, what did I put in here? Because we don't want it to, because here this is a thing which would repeat all the time, because the alarm would be resetted, which we don't want. Therefore, I need to reset the state to nothing. Of course, the text will be there all the time, which is the important part. So it won't loop. So this is kind of important. So here we are giving it a one-timer choice. Do the alarm 1 time, and then we kick it out of this state, because we don't want it to be doing this stuff, because it just needs to attack once and it's actually subtract some HP. And for now we haven't actually done this. So what we can actually do, and this is, let's put that into here because we have this. So your monster HP as minus equals the attack, other monster attack damage. This is the same which we do here, but skipped. So the other monster, and actually we can start it, and now you will see the whole sequence that we are doing those effects. And actually, as you can see now, this is the HP bar here and here. For example, we fight, as you can see, okay, he's hitting minus values, so this is a little bit too much. As you can see, minus 18. Definitely not the best way to do it. Never mind, it does work. So this is pretty sweet. So yeah, so let's make it not 25. That was a little too high. So let's go for 3. But as you can see, we are already doing that stuff. And now once we are finished with the enemy attacking, what do we do? Actually, what do we do? We go to skip enemy text. Okay. So what is happening here? Now, once again, we are reading the input of the enemy text. And then we, of course, want to skip it. Because here we go. Here we go. Looks pretty cool, man. Yeah, thanks. So once again, we are here, and now we are in something like this. So we just, once again, just get our input. Of course, you don't have to do this. You can do the input outside and put it somewhere in here, so it's always checking the input. But I think this is a neat way to lock the player out when he cannot do anything. So this is just a failsafe. You don't have to do this, but I think it's better to put them in those specific states. So once again, hey, we're just checking for our input and then saying, hey, are you pressing the action button? Cool. If yes, we erase our action text and we loop back to our player choice. Or actually now we just go for a small break. So let's go let's go for a small break once again, but call it break 2. And after that, then we give the player the choice again. So here we have a full loop. So we are almost finished here. You can see so bam. Yeah. So intro, text, fight, text, intro, here pop-ups, then waiting for an input, pressing a button, a little waiting time, then the enemy, as you can see, doing the same stuff. And because we just lost 1 HP, you don't actually see it. And we are waiting again for our input. Press it, wait, and once again we have our loop finished. And as you can see, we can make this thing for infinity. And if you're wondering why that stuff is not being shown on the bar, which actually it should, I put in our draw event, let's put that to the very right. Bye bye all of you. I put into those bars a value which I call lerp HP. Actually, let's go for that. Your monster HP, other monster. Let's kill it. Now you would be seeing it. Why did I put this in? Because I think this is a nice way how you can actually update and make it a little bit more beautiful. So let's go. As you can see, these things are now grayish. And let's say we fight. As you can see, bam. But it instantly takes it away, which doesn't look too good. And therefore, we go for lerp and lerp. And what is that? It's not too difficult to understand. Hopefully it's not to draw lerp, lerp, lerp. Where's lerp, lerp? Here we go. So we have lerp HP yours and that of the enemy. So these are just once again more more variables, and those variables we actually put on the outside. So let's go region action, come on, action loop, then end the action loop, and then here we actually want to lerp those things. And what do I do? What kind of values do I put in lerp HP? So basically what is happening here, I did this in my HP bar tutorial. This shouldn't be too difficult. So I am having an extra value which I call lerp HP. So this is a value which is catching up to the actual HP which we're having. So here lerp, so lerp needs 2 values, first one and second one, and then it will try to interpolate between those 2 values. And because this one is a fixed one, this one will try then to catch up. Then we go for a 0.5 value. And for example, once we start it, then you will see that the bar, when you're getting hit, as you can see now, it's refilling nicely. For example, we are hitting somebody. As you can see, it goes not instantly, but well, it tries to reach this point. And then depending how fast you do this, for example, if I'd go for, I don't know, 0.4, then it will be almost instantly, which doesn't look too good. And here you just play with this value because this is how fast you want to have it. As you can see now, is it almost instantly? Yeah, it's almost instantly, but I like it to be a little bit slower, which is great. So once again, we have almost finished everything which we wanted. So basically we're having our loop in our thingy here. We are drawing the stuff which we actually want to have. We're drawing a text, and then, well, then we are looping through different kind of stages. And of course, if you want to break out of this loop here, come on, close that stuff, then you would be having some if conditions. So here, if let's say the other monster HP is smaller than 0, then blah blah blah, do something here. Oh, come on. Then of course you window fight, you go, for example, you could define another state here where you can actually have some, where you're getting some text, which is actually can we do this? Yeah, we can, why not? So let's go for the last state. Come on, come on, come on. Last state, enemy dead. Enemy dead. So we do something like this. So we should just say, hey, the enemy HP is small to, well, smaller than 0 or 0. Then we just say, hey, it is 0, so it does actually look good. It does not have a minus value. And what actually do we do in that state? Here we give it a specific action text. So action text is what's the name? Okay, other monster name. Now your monster has gained your monster name, then plus has gained plus, come on, come on. What kind of value do we have here? This is the gain you're actually getting. Experience. And here we go. So this would be it. And then state would be zeroed out because we want to have it not repeated itself. And then we have an alarm. We have an alarm. PC too slow here. Let's go for, I don't know, 11. And then after, let's say, 2 seconds, what do we do after 2 seconds? We exit the room. So we go and 11, and then room, no, go to room number, and then of course the overworld back, and then of course our fight is done. So actually let's check it out if it does work. There's actually, that was not planned. That's all. Come on, come on, fight. We need to give him 3 hits. Come on, yeah, jump. Yeah, come on, come on, faster, faster, faster. Okay, and one more time we need to attack him, and then we actually could be out. So he's attacking, and now he is finished. Giving him. And now we're having a problem. The interesting part is, what kind of problem do we have? So step event, line 89, 88, blah, 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 blah. Gained. What kind of error do you have? I don't understand this. Action text, your monster name has gained. Here we go. Need to string that thing. Bam. Okay, that was my mistake. As you can see, because this is now case sensitive, you need to have it as a string, so as a character something something. But let's make it a little bit more faster because the hitting was a little bit too slow for my opinion. Let's go for 7 damage. And I guess these are then just 2 rounds because I don't want to wait around too long. So we're fighting. Bam. 7. He's fighting. Yeah, come on, skip it. Of course, what you could do is just make some drawing, like which just says skip. I have this, but I don't want to do this. So once again, come on, we fight him. Bam, he has 0. And as you can see, your monster has gained experience 1. Now actually we should be jumping to another room, which it isn't. Interesting, but this should be actually happening here. Not sure why that is, why it's overwriting. Maybe because that has a conflict with the other ones. Doesn't really matter. Okay, so the last thing which you need to understand, and then we are over, because this is a long ass stream here. So there are different ways how you can transport one thing from one room to the other. Normally, for example, this is how GameMaker Studio works. You have a game, you have a room, and for example, if you jump to another room, everything is getting killed and erased, which is, well, not the best thing, but okay. Another thing, for example, how you can avoid it is give these things, this little thing here, persistence. And persistent means that, well, the object in question, which you flagged as persistent, is being transported to another room because it's not getting destroyed. Because this is how GameMaker Studio works. The whole thing is being loaded. So all the assets, instances, and blah, 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 all that stuff is being loaded. And then once it is all there, you can use it because, well, this is how it works. First of all, it initializes all the variables and all the tilesets and blah, blah, blah. And this happens very, very fast. And then you have your whole level in memory. But then, for example, if you jump to the next level, so here the fight, then everything is getting killed. So all the instances getting killed, the tiles, backgrounds, assets, poof, all gone. Besides the ones which you are having as persistence flagged. And they are normally, you have a controller object which is sitting here, then it is storing the stuff which you want to keep in memory. And there, this one is normally, well, persistent. But here I do it in another way around. What I do, I, for example, have this object player, and now we come into the collision thing, which I showed you at the very, very, very beginning. What I do, I just say, hey, if this dude is walking around and then he's pressing actually his action button, are we having a collision? And the collision would be like something like this, very, very fast collision rectangle. So we're just checking if, go away, if this box is colliding with the box of the other guy here. And if it does, so with the NPC parent, so this dude here, and this one of course is inheriting it, and therefore we are colliding with all his children. Then we're checking, hey, is the instance which we are colliding to, is it not no one? So basically what this code is doing is just checking, hey, are we colliding with something? If yes, store that instance into this variable. If not, it would return no one. So it just have these two options, no one or the instance, and then, well, we store it. And what do? We create a little object, which are called object temp store, and here we do store all the important information which are overwriting the stuff in our control fight 2. So this one actually we could kill. Yeah, go away. So what I'm basically doing, once again, we're just creating an object, and then we're saying, hey, into this object, which has the same variables, as you can see, they are the same. We just pass in from our NPC, which we collided because we want to collect them and store them into this thing. And then, so the monster name, how much XP it's gaining, and all that stuff. From the player, we take it in another way. Of course, you could do this here if you like, but no problem. So we're just collecting, well, the monster name, the image, and so on, and how much HP it has, what kind of attacks, and all the stuff which you want. And then we jump into the fight room. So this is how I made it. And the interesting part about this temp store object is, well, first of all, as you can see, it has all those same variables, but set as default. But here we are grabbing instantly once we create it from the player, because the player always stays the same. So we can grab easily his stuff and, well, store it then in the variables which have the same name into this temporary storage. And for example, what do we do after we enter a new room? This is, so you go event, other, and room start. So for example, we jump into the other room and then we start the other room. So this is just triggered when you are in starting of a room. And then we trigger an alarm. Let's give it 5 steps. And then we are overwriting all the stuff which is in our controller with the same names. And then what is happening? Then we're actually having the information which we wanted in the end. So we are running around, pressing the H button. Okay, why don't you want? Let's go for never finds an object fight controller. Of course, because we didn't put it in. My bad, because I actually killed it. Not overworld fight. You put in the controller. Our instances, bam. And now what you will see that it has different stats. Come on, let's check it out. And then we are finished with this stream because it was long enough. As you can see, different monster, different name, different stats, Brezelmon. And as you can see now, these stats has been passed on. So once again, this dude and this dude have their values inside. Then we have a collision. We store all this stuff, all their informations into this little temporary object. And then once we go to the other room, we first of all we trigger an alarm. We destroy it because we just don't need it. It was just here, and as you can see, flagged as persistent. So when we were jumping to the other room, the room starts. We are destroying it because we don't need it. But of course, before that, we are passing in the stuff which we stored in him from our player and from the NPC. So your monster and other. You're just passing in that stuff and overwriting these things in our controller. And then we have the stuff which we wanted. And then the whole thing is finished. Wow, okay, we are at 2 hours and 40 minutes, which is way too long. As I said, this tutorial, I wanted to do a quick one. No fucking chance. Absolutely impossible. So if you're still sticking around, yay. Is there in general a lot of stuff you're gonna put into making some jailbreak? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Is there generally a lot of stuff you put in your game making JRPG project in gamemaker? Which one are you referring to? The one I do as a Patreon project, the top-down engine, or are you referring to this Udemy project, which I wanted to do? Because the Udemy, if it's going to be a JRPG, actually we can check it out. Which has, come on, go in. Which one has it? Yep, standard JRPG. So this one will be the Udemy course, because I guess you guys decided for that, and therefore there will be some mechanics, yes. But the point is, what kind of mechanics? Just standard stuff. So attack damage, critical, all the stuff you need, maybe a block value, and things which you need at the start. Once again, not to be confused, this is not going to be a whole game. This is a prototype. For example, that thing as well is a prototype. And what I want to give you in this Udemy course, because I didn't do this actually here, is having the game design aspect as 50-50. So first of all, I will show you how the IDE actually works, what these things are here, what they are good for, but what kind of things you need to, for example, put in your game design document, what kind of things you need to know in advance, how you can actually get them, where are good resources and so on, so you feel comfortable actually doing that by yourself. Because here, this almost 3-hour stream is nice and dandy, but it only gets the aspect of the programming, not the actual game designing stuff, which is very important as well. So it will be actually easier than this one, because this one is starting easy off, but let's say this is already advanced stuff. So this is it. Hopefully I actually answered your question with this. So yeah, we're pretty much done. So there's nothing to it. This is how you can make this Pokemon game style. How you can copy this, because it consists only of 2 things: the overworld and then the fighting. And then of course you can do some more nuances, because I just put in the first fighting thing, so the first attack. Then later on you have a leveling system in place, you have different kind of stats, and then you need to have, let's say, an extra outside controller which is saying, okay, your monster is leveled up, what kind of stats are being increased and so on. And this one is holding lots of information, then you will pass in and go from one side to the other one. So that was pretty much it. Pretty much it. After 2 hours and 44 minutes. Damn, way too long. Hopefully you learned something and you can copy that thing. And of course, link in the description below in a few minutes to the Patreon, where you can actually grab that whole thing and maybe you can digest it easier, because I can understand that that thing was huge. So hopefully you enjoyed it once again, and have a good one. One up indie.